My name is Maya Patel. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that if I just gave enough, achieved enough, and asked for little enough, my family would finally see me. I was wrong. I've spent 6 years and $68,000 trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. I've organized celebrations where I became the punchline. I've funded dreams that weren't mine while delaying my own. I've been the responsible daughter, the reliable sister, the family workhorse, valued for what I could provide, invisible as a person. This is the story of the night that ended. The night I walked out of a party I'd paid $12,000 to organize, leaving behind more than just my coat. I left behind 3 decades of hoping that this time, finally, they would see me. They didn't. But I finally saw them clearly. And that changed everything. The restaurant was beautiful that night, exactly as I'd planned it. Soft amber lighting from the chandeliers cast a warm glow across the private dining room. White tablecloths, floral centerpieces I'd selected myself, a video montage of family photos playing on a loop on the screen I'd rented. 80 guests filled the space. Extended family, my parents' friends, colleagues, neighbors, everyone dressed up, champagne flowing, laughter and conversation creating that particular hum of a successful party. My parents' 35th wedding anniversary celebration. 3 months of planning, coordinating schedules, securing the venue, arranging catering, hiring photographers. $12,000 of my savings. My entire annual vacation budget and then some. But it was worth it, I told myself. This was going to be different. This grand gesture would finally show them how much I cared, how valuable I was, how much I did for this family. I stood near the back of the room, watching my mother laugh with her sister, watching my father shake hands with old friends. They looked happy, pleased with how everything turned out. My chest felt tight with hope. Daniel, my younger brother, stood up and tapped his glass. The room quieted. He was good at commanding attention, always had been. Tall, charismatic, with that easy smile that made people lean in to listen. "I want to say a few words about these 2 amazing people," he began, gesturing to our parents. 35 years together. That's incredible. I smiled, my heart lifting. This was the moment. He'd acknowledged the effort, the planning, maybe even mentioned that I'd organized everything. "Mom and Dad have always been there for me," Daniel continued, "through every crazy idea, every setback, every adventure. They've supported me unconditionally." The guests nodded, murmured agreement. "And we can't forget my sister Maya," he said. I straightened. Finally. "The serious one," Daniel continued, grinning. "The one who schedules fun like a business meeting. The one married to her spreadsheets since she couldn't find an actual husband." Laughter rippled through the room. 80 people laughing. At me. My smile froze on my face. "Maya's always been so organized," he went on, encouraged by the response. "So responsible. So boring." More laughter, louder now. My mother stood up, laughing, putting her hand on Daniel's arm. "Well, someone had to be the responsible one, since Daniel is our free spirit." She looked at me with that fond, dismissive smile I knew so well. "Maya's always been our little worker bee. Busy, 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 but not much time for romance or adventure." The room erupted in laughter again. I could see faces I recognized. Aunts, uncles, family friends, all laughing. At the daughter who'd just spent $12,000 to make this night happen. My father raised his glass, chuckling. "Maya's our reliable one, our little workhorse. Not exciting, but we can always count on her to take care of business." The room toasted. to me being boring, reliable, useful, a workhorse. I stood there, champagne glass in my hand, unable to move. I'd organized everything, paid for everything, spent months making this perfect, and this was my acknowledgement, being the punchline to jokes about how unexciting I was. Then my mother tapped her glass, and the room quieted again. "Before we continue," she announced, her voice bright with excitement, "I have wonderful news to share. Daniel and Jennifer are expecting our first grandchild." The room exploded. Congratulations, hugs, excited squeals. Daniel was swarmed by well-wishers. Jennifer, his wife, beamed and placed her hand on her still flat stomach. My parents embraced them both, my mother crying happy tears. The anniversary celebration I'd spent 3 months planning became a baby announcement party in seconds. I watched it all happen, watched the attention shift entirely to Daniel, watched my parents glow with pride and joy, watched 80 guests celebrate my brother while I stood invisible in the back of the room I'd paid for. No one thanked me. No one acknowledged the venue, the catering, the decorations, the months of work. No one even seemed to remember that I existed beyond being the boring sister who made a good contrast to charismatic Daniel. I set my champagne glass down on the nearest table. My hands were shaking slightly, but my mind was suddenly strangely clear. I walked to the bathroom. The sounds of celebration faded as the door closed behind me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, older than 34. There were lines around my eyes I didn't remember being so deep. $12,000, I thought. 3 months of planning. Years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who took care of everything. And this was what I got. Public mockery while they celebrated my brother. I walked back into the main room. The party was in full swing, everyone clustered around Daniel and Jennifer, asking about due dates and names and nursery plans. My parents stood beside them, basking in the attention. I grabbed my phone from the table where I'd been sitting, left my purse, left my coat, just walked toward the exit. "Maya?" someone called. A cousin, I think. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer, kept walking. "Maya!" My mother's voice now, sharp with annoyance. "Maya, don't be so sensitive. We're just having fun. Come back." Just having fun. Laughing at me in front of 80 people was just having fun. I pushed through the restaurant's main door and out into the November night. Cold air hit my face. I'd left my coat inside, but I didn't care. I kept walking down the sidewalk, away from the restaurant, away from the laughter, away from everything. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. "Maya, stop making a scene and come back inside. This is inappropriate." Making a scene. I'd organized their entire celebration, paid for everything, and been publicly humiliated. But leaving quietly was making a scene. I opened my rideshare app with shaking fingers and requested a car. 3 minutes away. More texts came in. Cousins asking where I'd gone. My mother demanding I return. My father saying I was being overly emotional. The car arrived. I got in, gave my address, and leaned back against the seat. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror but didn't ask questions. Thank God. My phone kept buzzing the entire drive home. I turned off the sound and watched the city lights blur past the window. When I got to my apartment, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just sat at my kitchen table in the dark for a long time, still wearing my dress, my phone face down beside me. Then I opened my laptop. I created a new spreadsheet, muscle memory from years of marketing analytics work. But this wasn't for work. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, purpose. Column D, actual use. I started filling it in. Every dollar I'd given my family over the past 6 years, every loan that was never repaid, every expense I'd covered, every crisis I'd solved. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. I remembered it all. Had been tracking it all along, really, even when I tried to pretend I wasn't keeping score. The total at the bottom of the spreadsheet? $68,000. $68,000 over 6 years. I created another document, started listing dates and events. My 30th birthday, canceled because Daniel's girlfriend broke up with him. My promotion to senior manager, 2-word response in the family group chat. My work award for best campaign of the year, no acknowledgement. Daniel's new job as junior sales associate, family dinner celebration. Daniel's decision to grow a beard, 15 messages in the family chat discussing it. The list went on and on, pages of it. I opened my bank account, looked at the balance. The $12,000 for tonight's party had nearly depleted my savings. I was supposed to use that money as a house down payment. I'd been saving for 3 years. Instead, I'd paid for a party where my family laughed at me. Something inside me didn't break. It clarified. Like a lens coming into focus after years of blur. I'd been trying to purchase love, trying to earn respect, trying to prove my worth to people who'd already decided I was only valuable for what I could provide. No amount of money would change that. No amount of achievement. No amount of giving. They didn't see me. They never had, and I was done trying to make them. I opened a new document and started writing. Not from emotion, just facts. Every contribution, every dismissal, everything they needed to know about why this was over. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. The grief would come later, I was sure. But right now, I was focused on something else entirely. Truth and liberation. I need you to understand how it started. How I became the daughter who spent $68,000 trying to buy love that should have been free. I was born when my parents were 31, established, financially stable. My father was a mid-level manager at a manufacturing company. My mother worked part-time as a bookkeeper. They'd bought their first house 2 years before I arrived, had savings, plans, stability. I was a quiet baby, they told me. Easy. Slept through the night early, didn't fuss much. Even as a small child, I was self-sufficient in ways that pleased them. I learned to dress myself before most kids my age, could entertain myself for hours with books or puzzles, never demanded much attention. "You were such an easy child," my mother would say later, and it always sounded like a compliment. But there was something else underneath it. Relief, maybe. Gratitude that I didn't require much from them. I excelled at school because achievement felt like the clearest path to approval. Straight A's, honor roll, teacher's pet. I'd bring home my report card and watch my father's face for that flash of pride. Sometimes I'd see it, brief, distracted, but there. "Good job, Maya," he'd say, then go back to his newspaper. It was enough, or I told myself it was. Then Daniel was born when I was 5, and everything shifted. He was colicky, difficult, demanded constant attention with his screaming and his needs. I remember watching my mother pace the floor at 2 a.m., bouncing him, exhausted and frazzled. My father taking shifts, bleary-eyed and stressed. I made myself smaller, quieter. I understood, even at 5, that they were overwhelmed, that the way to help was to need nothing. I got myself ready for kindergarten, made my own breakfast, cereal and milk I could pour myself, put myself to bed when I was tired, became functionally independent while my parents orbited around Daniel's endless needs. And something happened. The pattern set. I was the easy one. Daniel was the one who needed them. As he grew, his personality emerged. Charismatic, funny, spontaneous. Everything I wasn't. While I brought home perfect report cards, Daniel brought home stories that made everyone laugh. While I won academic competitions, Daniel won hearts. I remember my 10th birthday. I'd been excited for weeks. Double digits felt significant. My mother had promised we'd go to the pizza place I loved, the one with the arcade games. I'd invited 3 friends from school. The morning of my birthday, I woke up early. Could hear my mother on the phone downstairs, her voice tense. I know it's last minute, but Daniel got selected for a solo in the dance recital tonight. It's a huge opportunity. We can't miss it. My birthday party was postponed. We'll do it next week, my mother promised, distracted, already mentally planning for Daniel's recital. Next week came and went. There was always something else. Eventually, we never had that party. But I went to Daniel's recital. Sat in the audience in the new dress I'd bought with my allowance money, watching my 7-year-old brother perform a 30-second dance solo, watching my parents beam with pride. That was when I understood. Daniel's minor moments mattered more than my major ones. In 8th grade, I made honor roll. Again. I'd made it every quarter since 6th grade, but this time felt different because it came with a special ceremony. I brought home the invitation from my parents. "That's wonderful, honey," my mother said, barely glancing at the paper. "We'll try to be there." They came, sat through the ceremony. The moment my name was called and I walked across the stage, my father checked his watch. "We need to leave," he whispered to my mother. "Daniel's game starts in 30 minutes. We left before the reception, before I could take photos with my teachers or celebrate with the other students. We drove across town to Daniel's baseball game. He sat on the bench the entire time, never played a single inning, but we stayed for all of it. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Tell me in the comments, because I need you to know you're not alone. High school was when the financial disparity became obvious. I worked part-time at a bookstore junior and senior year, saving every dollar for college. I applied to scholarships, wrote essays, did everything I could to minimize costs. I got a full scholarship to a good state university. My parents took me to Applebee's to celebrate. We were there 40 minutes before my dad suggested we head home because Daniel had homework he needed help with. Daniel barely graduated high school. 2.3 GPA, minimal effort, 0 motivation for college. But my parents encouraged him to take a gap year to find himself. They funded 6 months of backpacking through Europe. I saw the credit card statements once. Over $15,000. I'd worked 2 jobs to save money for textbooks. Daniel got $15,000 to find himself. I didn't say anything. What would I have said? I was the responsible one. I was fine. I didn't need help. That's what made me valuable, right? Wrong. That's what made me invisible. College graduation came 4 years later. I'd worked the entire time, kept my scholarship, graduated magna cum laude. My parents came to the ceremony. So did Daniel, though he complained the whole time about being bored. We went to dinner after. Chain restaurant again. My mother said the nice place was too expensive. We ordered appetizers to share. My father took a work call halfway through. My mother spent most of the meal asking Daniel about his latest job search. "Maya, can you help your brother with his resume?" she asked as we were leaving. "You're so good at that kind of thing." My graduation became an opportunity for me to help Daniel. I was 22, sitting in my new apartment, rented with my first paycheck from my first real job, when I finally let myself acknowledge the pattern. I'd just accepted a position at a marketing firm. Good salary, real benefits, career potential. I'd called my parents, excited despite knowing better, hoping this would be different. "That's wonderful, honey," my mother had said. "You've always been so driven. Now, while I have you, can you help your brother with his resume? He's struggling to find anything, and you're so good at this." I said yes. Of course I said yes. I always said yes. After I hung up, I sat on my second-hand couch in my sparse apartment and understood something terrible. I'd been trained to need little, trained to give much, trained to equate my value with my usefulness, trained to believe that being easy meant being good, even when being easy actually meant being ignored. My parents loved me. I believed that then, and part of me still wants to believe it now. But they loved the version of me that served them. The daughter who didn't require attention, who solved problems, who made their lives easier. They loved what I could do for them, not who I was. And I'd spent 22 years trying to earn the other kind of love by being better at the only kind they offered. The pattern didn't change as I got older. It calcified, became the permanent structure of our family. I built my career through my 20s, promoted to account manager at 26, senior manager at 28. I bought my first apartment at 29, small, one bedroom, but mine. Each achievement was met with minimal acknowledgement. "That's nice, dear," became my mother's signature response to anything I shared, followed immediately by, "Have you talked to your brother lately? I'm worried about him." Always worried about Daniel, never worried about me. Because I was fine. I was always fine. Daniel, meanwhile, cycled through ventures. A food truck that lasted 4 months, an app idea he abandoned after 2 weeks of development, a band that played 3 gigs before falling apart. Each failure received more family attention and support than any of my successes. Family dinners became predictable theater. I'd arrive with food I'd prepared or picked up. No one else thought to contribute. I'd help set up, pour drinks, make sure everyone had what they needed. Invisible labor that was expected, never acknowledged. Conversation inevitably centered on Daniel, his latest project, his relationship drama, his plans and dreams and struggles. When I tried to share something about work, a major client I'd landed, a campaign that exceeded goals, the attention would drift. "That's great, Maya," my father would say, already turning to Daniel. "So, how's the job search going?" Holiday gifts became another measure of the disparity. Christmas, birthdays. Daniel received thoughtful presents. The year he was into photography, he got a high-end camera. When he took up cycling, a premium bike. The year he mentioned wanting to learn guitar, a beautiful instrument and lessons. I received practical things, kitchen appliances, organizational tools, a label maker one year. "You're so organized, we thought you'd like this," my mother said, pleased with herself. Once, I mentioned feeling overlooked. My mother looked genuinely confused. "Overlooked? Maya, you're so successful already. You have a great job, your own place. You don't need what Daniel needs. You understand that, right? He's still finding his way." Daniel was 32 at the time, still finding his way while I'd been on my way since I was 18. But pointing that out would make me the bad sister, the unsupportive one. So I smiled and said I understood. The worst was watching them rewrite reality. My mother would tell friends, "Maya's always been so independent, never needed us the way Daniel does. She just takes care of everything herself." As if my independence was natural, not learned. As if I didn't need them because I was somehow different, not because needing them meant being disappointed. My 30th birthday approached, and I made a decision. I'd stopped expecting grand gestures years ago, but this felt significant. 30. A milestone. Maybe they'd remember. Maybe they'd acknowledge it. I didn't plan anything myself, didn't drop hints, I just hoped. The day came. I woke up to a text from my mother. "Happy birthday, sweetie!" That was it. No calls, no suggestions to get together, just a text. I went to work, came home, ordered takeout, sat in my apartment alone. At 7 p.m., my mother called. "Maya, I'm so sorry, but we can't do dinner tonight. Daniel's girlfriend broke up with him and he's devastated. He really needs us right now. We'll celebrate your birthday next week, okay?" "Okay," I said. Next week came. Nothing. I sent a follow-up text 2 weeks later. "Still want to do that birthday dinner?" "We're so busy right now, honey. Soon." I stopped asking. 3 weeks later, the family group chat erupted with messages about Daniel's new job. Junior sales associate at a tech company. Entry level, probably $45,000 a year. "We should celebrate," my mother wrote. "Dinner tomorrow night? All of us?" They had time for Daniel's entry-level job, but not for my 30th birthday. I went to the celebration dinner, smiled, said congratulations, listened to my parents talk about how proud they were, how this was a new beginning for Daniel, how they always knew he'd find his path. I'd been on my path for 8 years. No one had ever thrown me a dinner to celebrate that. That night, alone in my apartment, I made a decision. I'd stop expecting things, stop hoping for acknowledgement, stop measuring their love or approval. It was self-preservation, I told myself. Lower expectations meant less disappointment. But what I didn't realize was that I was erasing myself, making myself smaller and smaller to avoid the pain of being small in their eyes, becoming so self-sufficient that I'd given them permission to ignore me completely. And the worst part? I couldn't stop giving, couldn't stop showing up, couldn't stop trying to be valuable in the only way they seemed to recognize, by being useful. Because stopping would mean admitting that the role I'd been playing was the only role I had. That if I wasn't the responsible daughter, the one who solved problems and asked for nothing, I might not be anyone to them at all. That fear kept me trapped for another 4 years. The phone call came when I was 28, 3 weeks after my promotion to senior manager. My father's name on my phone screen was unusual enough to make me answer immediately. "Maya?" "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" Sweetheart. He only used endearments when he wanted something. "I'm good, Dad. What's up?" "Listen, we have a situation. Daniel's food truck venture didn't work out. He's got about $15,000 in debt, suppliers, equipment loans, permits he can't use. His credit is shot. He's looking at possible bankruptcy." I'd known the food truck was failing, seen the writing on the wall months ago when Daniel stopped posting about it on social media. But $15,000 in debt? "That's a lot," I said carefully. "It is, and your mother and I would help, but we've had some unexpected expenses. The house needs work, and we just don't have that kind of liquid cash right now. We were hoping maybe you could loan him the money just until he gets back on his feet?" I looked at my bank account balance on my computer screen. I had the money. I'd been saving aggressively since my promotion, building an emergency fund, preparing for a house down payment eventually. "I can help," I heard myself say. "But I need a repayment plan, something structured." Of course, of course. Daniel's good for it. He just needs to avoid bankruptcy. This would save him, Maya. I transferred $15,000 that afternoon, drew up a simple loan agreement, monthly payments over 3 years, no interest because he was family. Daniel signed it, thanked me, said he'd never forget this. He never made a single payment. 3 months later, when I gently brought it up, my mother called me. "Maya, honey, Daniel's trying to find a new job and get back on his feet. Don't add to his stress right now. You can afford to wait, can't you?" I could afford to wait. That was always the justification. I could afford it. So I waited. The months became a year. The year became 2. The loan was never mentioned again except when I brought it up, and each time I was made to feel petty for keeping track. But that was just the beginning. 6 months after the Daniel loan, my father's car broke down. Major engine failure. Repair costs exceeded the car's value. He needed a new vehicle. "Could you co-sign a loan for me, Maya? My credit isn't great right now. We had to put some of Daniel's early food truck costs on credit cards. But with your credit score, we could get approved." I co-signed. Why wouldn't I? He was my father. The monthly payment was $450. My father made the first 3 payments. Then they stopped. I started getting collection notices. My credit score dropped 40 points before I even realized what was happening. When I called to ask what happened, my father was defensive. "We had unexpected expenses. Daniel needed help with rent. We had to prioritize." They prioritized Daniel over the loan that was damaging my credit. I took over the payments, paid $450 a month for a car my father drove while my credit score slowly recovered. 10 months later, "Maya, the house needs a new HVAC system. It's $13,000. We can't afford the whole thing. Could you help with half?" I sent $6,000. Later, I discovered they'd paid nothing. The entire cost was covered by me and a home equity loan. My half had actually been closer to 80%. The rest went to cosmetic upgrades for Daniel's old bedroom, which they were converting into a home gym. 18 months later, "Daniel's getting married! We're so excited! The wedding budget is tight, though. Could you cover the rehearsal dinner? It would mean so much." The rehearsal dinner cost $3,800. I also contributed $2,000 to their honeymoon fund at my mother's request. "It's what families do," she said. 6 months after that, "Your mother needs dental surgery. It's not fully covered by insurance. We're short about $6,800. We've already dipped into savings helping Daniel with wedding costs. Could you?" I paid the full amount. Found out later they'd actually dipped into savings for a European river cruise they took 2 months after my mother's surgery. I saw the photos on Facebook. Each request followed the same pattern: crisis presentation, appeal to family duty, my agreement, minimal gratitude, no repayment plan, and always, always the implicit message: you can afford it, and we need it, so why would you say no? I kept records, professional habit from my work in marketing analytics. Every transaction dated and categorized. I told myself it wasn't about demanding repayment, it was just my way of processing. But the records told a story I tried not to read. Over 6 years, I gave or loaned my family $68,000. $68,000. Meanwhile, I delayed buying a house, drove a 10-year-old car, took budget vacations or none at all, lived modestly while my parents took river cruises and Daniel and his wife leased luxury vehicles. The financial exploitation was obvious when I let myself see it. But I didn't let myself see it. I rationalized. They're family. Family helps each other. Maybe this time they'll recognize what I'm doing. If I stop giving, I'll lose them completely. But what was I holding on to? Phone calls that only came when they needed money? Family gatherings where I was scenery? A relationship where my value was purely financial? I knew I was being used. I'm not stupid. But I was trapped in something more powerful than logic. I was trapped in hope and fear. Hope that accumulating enough sacrifices would finally earn me the seat at the table I'd been standing outside my whole life. Fear that if I stopped being useful, I'd be nothing to them at all. The breaking point came gradually, then all at once. Small moments of clarity I kept pushing away. Finding out my parents gave Daniel $10,000 for a down payment on a condo, the same month they told me they couldn't afford their share of my mother's dental surgery. Discovering that Jennifer, Daniel's wife, had a designer handbag that cost more than the emergency rent money I'd sent them 2 months earlier. Realizing my mother only called when she needed something. Our conversations never lasted longer than 10 minutes, always ended with a financial request. Watching my father forward me Daniel's bills via email, no message, no explanation, just an assumption that I'd handle it. I'd become a function, not a daughter, an ATM, not a family member. One evening, I sat in my modest apartment. I should have bought a house years ago. And opened my financial records, really looked at them. $68,000 over 6 years. My savings account should have been substantial. Instead, it was adequate. Healthy only because I was disciplined and lived below my means. I'd sacrificed my financial security to subsidize their lifestyle, to fund Daniel's dreams and my parents' comfortable retirement, to be valuable in the only way they seemed to recognize. And what had I gotten in return? I looked at my calendar. My birthday 3 months ago, forgotten. My work award last month, unmentioned. The family group chat from last week, where Daniel's decision to grow a beard generated 15 messages, while my promotion to senior manager got "congrats" from my mother, and nothing from anyone else. I was paying $68,000 for the privilege of being invisible. When would enough be enough? I didn't know, but I could feel something building, some limit approaching. I just didn't know it would arrive at a party I'd organized, or that it would be delivered as laughter at my expense in front of 80 people. The crisis was coming. I just didn't see it yet. 3 months before the party, my mother had called with an idea. "Your father and I have been talking. Our 35th anniversary is coming up. It feels significant, you know? We'd love to do something special. Just family at first, nothing big. What do you think?" I'd felt that dangerous flutter of hope. A family celebration. Maybe this could be different. Maybe this could be the moment they'd see all I did, all I gave. "What if I organized it?" I offered. "Made it really special for you both." "Oh, Maya, that would be wonderful. But don't go overboard. Nothing expensive. Just something nice." That conversation had shifted over weeks. Nothing expensive became, "Maybe we could invite a few friends." A few friends became, "Maybe extended family, too." Small and nice became, wouldn't it be lovely to have it somewhere special? Each shift, I adjusted my plans, upgraded the venue, expanded the guest list, enhanced the catering, because this was their 35th anniversary. They deserved something beautiful. And maybe, if I made it perfect enough, they'd finally see me. I spent 3 months planning every detail, researched venues until I found the perfect private dining room at an upscale restaurant downtown, coordinated with 80 guests, confirming attendance, collecting dietary restrictions, managing the seating chart. Hired photographers, created a video montage of family photos set to music, selected flowers, designed the menu, chose the wine. My mother would call periodically with updates. "We saw the venue online. It looks beautiful. But Maya, it must be expensive. We can help with costs." "Don't worry about it, Mom. This is my gift to you both." "Are you sure? That's so generous, honey." Those words, "so generous, honey," gave me a hit of dopamine, acknowledgement, appreciation. I chased that feeling through 3 months of planning. The total cost? $12,000, my entire annual vacation budget. The money I'd been setting aside for a trip to Japan I'd dreamed about for years. Gone. But it was worth it, I told myself. This would be worth it. The night of the party, I arrived early, checked every detail. The flowers were perfect. The lighting was warm and elegant. The video montage played on a loop. Photos of my parents through 35 years, images of our family, set to their favorite songs. Guests started arriving. My parents came in and my mother gasped, "Maya, this is beautiful. You did all this?" "Everything," I said, feeling that hope rise in my chest. "I wanted it to be perfect for you." "It is. It's wonderful." My father hugged me. "Great job, kiddo." It wasn't much, but it was something. I held on to it. The evening progressed. Guests complimented the venue, the food, the whole atmosphere. My parents glowed, accepting congratulations and well wishes. I watched from the edges, making sure everything ran smoothly, making sure everyone had drinks, food, everything they needed. No one mentioned that I'd organized it all, but that was okay. My parents knew. That was enough. Then Daniel stood up to give a toast. I felt my heart lift. This was the moment, the acknowledgement. He'd thank me for organizing everything. Maybe my parents would say something too, publicly recognize what I'd done. Daniel tapped his glass. The room quieted. He smiled that charismatic smile that made everyone lean in. "I want to say a few words about these two incredible people," he began. "Mom and Dad. 35 years together. That's not just impressive, it's inspiring." Murmurs of agreement. My parents beamed. "They've always been there for me," Daniel continued. "Through every crazy idea, every setback, every adventure. They've supported me unconditionally, never judged, just loved and encouraged." I stood near the back, waiting for my part. The acknowledgement of the planning, the effort, the gift. "And we can't forget my sister Maya," he said. Here it was. I straightened, smiled. "The serious one," Daniel said, grinning at the crowd. "The one who schedules fun like a business meeting." Laughter. Polite. Anticipatory. Where was this going? "The one married to her spreadsheets since she couldn't find an actual husband." The room erupted in laughter. Louder now. I felt my smile freeze on my face. "Maya's always been so organized," Daniel went on, encouraged by the response. "So responsible, so Let's be honest. Kinda boring. More laughter. I could see faces, aunts, uncles, family friends, colleagues of my parents, all laughing at me. My mother stood up, laughing, placing her hand affectionately on Daniel's arm. Well, someone had to be the responsible one, since Daniel is our free spirit. The crowd laughed with her. Maya's always been our little worker bee, my mother continued, looking at me with that fond, dismissive smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Busy, 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 but not much time for romance or adventure. The room was roaring now, entertained by the comparison between charismatic, spontaneous Daniel and boring, unromantic Maya. My father stood, raising his glass, grinning. Maya's our reliable one, our little workhorse. Not exciting, but we can always count on her to take care of business. He lifted his glass higher. To Maya, our reliable workhorse. The room toasted. 80 people raised their glasses. To me being boring, reliable, useful, a workhorse. I stood there, champagne glass in my hand, unable to move, unable to breathe. I'd spent $12,000, 3 months of my life, coordinated every detail, made this night perfect, and my acknowledgement was being the punchline, the boring sister, the one who couldn't find a husband, the workhorse. The humiliation burned through me like acid. My mother tapped her glass, still laughing. Before we continue, I have wonderful news to share. Please no, I thought. Please don't. Daniel and Jennifer are expecting our first grandchild. The room exploded. Congratulations, squeals, excited hugs. Daniel was swarmed. Jennifer beamed. My parents embraced them both, my mother crying happy tears. The anniversary I'd spent 3 months planning disappeared, became a baby announcement party in seconds. I watched it happen, watched my parents glow with joy over Daniel's news, watched 80 guests celebrate my brother, watched my 3 months of work, my $12,000, my hope, all of it become invisible in the face of Daniel's latest life event. No one thanked me. No one looked my way. I'd organized and funded everything, and I might as well not have existed. I set my champagne glass down carefully on the nearest table. My hands were shaking, but my mind was suddenly, strangely clear. I walked to the bathroom, the sounds of celebration muffled as the door closed. I stood at the sink, staring at my reflection. I looked tired, older than 34, lines around my eyes, tension in my jaw. When had I started looking this worn down? $12,000, I thought. 3 months. 6 years of giving them $68,000. A lifetime of being the responsible one. For this. To be laughed at. To be called boring and unexciting. To be invisible except when they needed my money or my labor. I walked back into the main room. The party was in full swing. Everyone clustered around Daniel and Jennifer, asking about due dates and baby names. My parents stood beside them, basking in the attention and joy. I picked up my phone from the table where I had been sitting, left my purse, left my coat hanging in the coat check, just grabbed my phone and walked toward the exit. Maya, someone called, a cousin. Where are you going? I didn't answer, kept walking. Maya, my mother's voice, sharp with annoyance. Maya, don't be so sensitive. We're just having fun. Come back. just having fun. I pushed through the restaurant door into the November night. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I'd left my coat, but I didn't care. I kept walking down the sidewalk, away from the restaurant, away from the laughter, away from all of it. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. Maya, stop making a scene and come back inside. This is inappropriate. Making a scene. I'd organized their celebration, paid $12,000, and been publicly humiliated. But leaving quietly was making a scene. I opened my rideshare app, requested a car, 3 minutes away. More texts came in, cousins asking where I'd gone, my mother demanding I return immediately, my father saying I was being overly emotional and embarrassing them. I was embarrassing them. That was rich. The car arrived. I climbed in, gave my address, leaned back against the seat. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror but had the good sense not to ask questions. My phone kept buzzing the entire drive. I turned off the sound and watched the city lights blur past. When I got home, I walked into my apartment and just stood there for a long moment, still in my dress, still shaking slightly from cold and shock and something else, something I was afraid to name. I didn't cry. I thought I would, expected the tears to come. But they didn't. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, phone face down, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. Not sadness, not even anger yet, just absolute, crystalline clarity. They'd laughed at me in front of 80 people after I'd given them $68,000 over 6 years. After I'd spent $12,000 and 3 months making their celebration perfect. They'd made me the joke while I paid the bills. And they expected me to come back, to smile and pretend it was fine, to keep being the reliable workhorse who took care of business without needing romance or adventure or basic human dignity. I opened my laptop, created a new spreadsheet, started filling in dates, amounts, purposes. Every dollar I'd given them over 6 years, every loan, every expense, every crisis I'd solved. The total at the bottom, $68,000. I created another document, listed every missed birthday, every ignored achievement, every time I'd been invisible except when they needed something. The list went on for pages. Then I checked my bank account, looked at the balance. The $12,000 for tonight had nearly wiped out my savings. Money I'd been setting aside for a house down payment, for my future, for my life. Gone. Spent on a party where my family laughed at me. The betrayal wasn't just tonight. It was the pattern, the decades of it, the systematic way I'd been valued for utility and dismissed as a person. I'd been trying to purchase something that should have been freely given. Love, respect, basic acknowledgement of my humanity. And no amount of money was ever going to buy it. I sat in my quiet apartment and made a decision. Not from rage, though that would come. Not from hurt, though that was there too. From clarity. I was done performing for scraps, done being the punchline while footing the bill, done hoping that this time, finally, they'd see me. They wouldn't. They never would. But I saw them now, clearly, finally. And I saw myself, what I'd become, what I'd allowed myself to become. I opened a new document and started writing. Not emotional, not accusatory, just factual. Every contribution, every dismissal, every pattern, everything they needed to know about why this was over. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. The grief would come later, the anger too, and the mourning for what I'd never had. But right now, I was focused on truth and on walking away with whatever dignity I had left. I called in sick Monday, couldn't face work, couldn't face anything except my laptop and the truth I was finally ready to see. I spent the week documenting everything, downloaded 6 years of bank statements, highlighted every transfer to family members, color-coded them, red for money never repaid, yellow for expenses they'd claimed hardship on, blue for costs I'd covered while they spent on luxuries. The spreadsheet grew, transaction after transaction, each one with dates, amounts, and notes about what I'd been told the money was for versus what it actually funded. Mom's dental surgery, $6,800, paid in full by me, while my parents took a wine country vacation the same month. Daniel's emergency rent payment, $2,200. He and Jennifer posted Instagram stories from a spa weekend that same week, Jennifer wearing a designer coat I recognized from a magazine ad. Cost, $2,400. Dad's car loan I'd co-signed, $450 per month for 18 months before I took it over entirely. My credit score damage, 40 points. The HVAC system for the house, $6,000 from me. Later discovered they'd paid $1,500 and taken out a home equity loan for the rest, using my contribution to renovate Daniel's old bedroom into a home gym. I compiled emails and text messages, every request for money, every appeal to family duty, every promise of repayment that never materialized. I found the group chat from my 30th birthday, read through it with fresh eyes. Mom, we can't make dinner tonight. Daniel's girlfriend broke up with him and he's devastated. He really needs us. We'll celebrate later. Me, 2 weeks later. Still want to do that birthday dinner? Mom, we're so busy right now, honey. Soon. It never happened. But 3 weeks later, the same group chat erupted with messages about Daniel's new job. Plans for a celebration dinner materialized within hours. They had time for Daniel's entry-level job. No time for my 30th birthday. I screenshot social media posts, created a timeline showing their lifestyle spending while claiming financial hardship. The month they said they couldn't possibly contribute to Mom's dental work. Facebook photos from a wine country getaway. 5-star restaurants, wine tastings, hotel spa services. The week Daniel needed emergency money, Jennifer's Instagram showed manicures, shopping trips, meals at expensive restaurants. Last month, Dad posted photos of the family's new outdoor furniture set. Thousands of dollars worth. 2 weeks after he'd forwarded me Daniel's car insurance bill with no message, just an expectation I'd pay it, the documentation was damning. Patterns impossible to deny when laid out chronologically. But this wasn't for a lawsuit. I knew I'd never get the money back, and I didn't want it. This was about something else entirely. Controlling the narrative. Was I overreacting? Was this normal family dysfunction that everyone dealt with? Was I the problem? I needed perspective outside my own head. I called my cousin Lauren, my father's niece, 3 years older than me. We'd been close as kids, drifted apart in our 20s. She'd been notably absent from family gatherings the past few years, and no one really talked about why. Maya? She sounded surprised. It's been forever. How are you? I need to ask you something, I said. Why did you stop coming to family events? Silence. Then, that's a complicated question. I have time. We talked for 3 hours. Lauren told me about her own experience with our family. being constantly criticized for her life choices, compared unfavorably to other cousins, expected to participate in family events she'd organized and funded. When she'd started setting boundaries, she was labeled difficult and selfish. "They do this," Lauren said quietly. "They have favorites, and everyone else is supporting cast. I stopped playing my role 8 years ago. Best decision I ever made." "Did they understand, eventually?" I asked, hearing the hope in my own voice. "No, they doubled down, told everyone I'd abandoned the family, said I'd become cold and heartless. But here's the thing, Maya. I wasn't waiting for their understanding anymore. I was choosing my peace." "How did you know it was time to walk away?" "When staying cost more than leaving. When I looked at my life and realized I was performing for people who'd never applaud. When I understood that no amount of trying would ever be enough." I told her everything. The $68,000, the party, the public humiliation, the pattern stretching back to childhood. Lauren listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "What would staying cost you?" "More money, more of myself, more years hoping they'll change." "And leaving?" "I'd lose them." "Would you, though? What exactly would you be losing?" I sat with that question. What would I be losing? Parents who only called when they needed money? A brother who saw me as a resource, not a person? Family gatherings where I was invisible except when serving as a punchline. "What are you trying to change?" Lauren asked. "Them or yourself?" That question hit differently. I couldn't change them. 34 years had proven that. But I could change my participation. I could stop feeding a dynamic that diminished me. "I'm trying to free myself," I said. "Then do it, and prepare for them to hate you for it." Over the next several days, I drafted a letter to my family. Wrote it, deleted it, rewrote it, over and over until the emotion was stripped away and only facts remained. The financial history, specific amounts and dates, the pattern of emotional dismissal, concrete examples with context, my decision to step back, the boundaries going forward, not asking for apology, not demanding repayment, just informing them that my participation in this dynamic was over. I scheduled the email to send Sunday morning at 10 a.m., when they typically had their weekly family brunch group chat. I'd be out of the house, at a coffee shop with Lauren, not alone when the responses came. Saturday night, a group text appeared from my mother. "Family dinner Tuesday. Maya, can you pick up the groceries? Here's the list." 20 items, specific brands. No please, no would you mind, just an assumption that I'd comply, that everything was normal, that the party disaster hadn't happened. No acknowledgement of what they'd done, no apology, just business as usual, with me cast as the reliable worker bee who took care of things. I stared at that text for a long time, felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no obligation, no urge to comply, just resolve. I didn't respond. Sunday morning, I met Lauren at a quiet cafe 3 blocks from my apartment. We ordered coffee, found a corner table. At 9:59 a.m., I opened my laptop. The scheduled email sat in my outbox, ready to send. "Last chance to back out," Lauren said gently. "I'm not backing out." 10 a.m., the email sent. I closed my laptop, put my phone on Do Not Disturb. "How do you feel?" Lauren asked. I thought about it, searched for the guilt I'd expected, the fear, the regret. Found something else instead. "Free," I said. "Terrified," but free. Lauren smiled. Good. Now the hard part starts. This wasn't the hard part? No. The hard part is holding your boundary when they try to break it, and they will try. I nodded. I knew she was right. But I also knew something else. Something I'd never been sure of before. I was done trying to earn love from people who'd already decided what I was worth to them. I was choosing myself. Finally, after 34 years. And nothing they said or did was going to change that. The next day, Lauren called. How are you holding up? Phone's been blowing up. I haven't looked. Good. Keep it that way for now. But, Maya, you're going to need more support than just me. This is bigger than one person can handle alone. She gave me a name, Dr. Patricia Chen, a therapist who specialized in family estrangement and emotional abuse. She helped me when I went through this, Lauren said. Call her, please. I called that afternoon. Dr. Chen had an opening later in the week. When I walked into her office Thursday, I was prepared to explain everything from the beginning. But she just gestured to the chair and said, Tell me what brought you here. I told her. All of it. The words poured out, childhood patterns, financial exploitation, the party, the decision to cut contact. I half expected her to tell me I was overreacting, being too harsh, damaging relationships over misunderstandings. She didn't. You've been in a scapegoat role, Dr. Chen said when I finished. Not the obvious kind where you're blamed for everything, but the functional kind where you're valued only for what you provide, not who you are. Having clinical terminology for my experience was validating and devastating simultaneously. Your brother is the golden child, she continued, loved for existing. You're the utility child, appreciated for producing. Your parents maintain this dynamic because it serves them. Your stability subsidizes your brother's lifestyle and their ability to play good parents without financial strain. Why do they do this? Because it works for them. You're competent and self-sufficient, so they don't have to feel guilty about neglecting you. You're fine, right? Meanwhile, your brother needs them, which makes them feel important and needed. The explanation made horrible sense. Will they ever understand? I asked. Probably not. People rarely understand dynamics that benefit them. But Maya, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is protecting yourself. They're going to respond badly. They're going to deny, minimize, and blame shift. Your mother might cry and claim you misunderstood. Your father might get angry and accuse you of being ungrateful. Daniel might act confused, like he has no idea why you're upset. What do I do? You hold your boundary, regardless of their reaction. No defending, no explaining, no justifying. You've made your decision. Now you enforce it. Over the next week, Dr. Chen and Lauren helped me develop a strategic plan. Maintain no contact for a minimum of 30 days, regardless of their responses. Prepare a brief, dignified statement for extended family who ask questions. Document any escalation, attempts to show up at my apartment or workplace. Build a support network beyond Lauren. Focus on my healing, not their reaction. I took practical steps. Changed my emergency contact from my parents to Lauren, informed my apartment building's front desk that no family members should be given access without my explicit permission, alerted my workplace HR that I might have family members trying to reach me, and requested they not be connected to my line. Lauren helped me craft responses to various scenarios. If extended family asks, I've made a difficult decision to distance myself from my immediate family. I don't expect everyone to understand, but I ask that my privacy be respected. If colleagues notice, I'm dealing with some personal family matters. I appreciate your understanding. If my family shows up in person, I've communicated my boundaries clearly. I need you to respect them and leave. We role-played the hardest scenario. Lauren pretended to be my mother, crying, claiming not to understand, saying I was breaking her heart. I practiced staying calm, not engaging, holding my boundary, regardless of emotional manipulation. It was harder than I expected. Even in role play, the guilt tried to pull me under. That's decades of conditioning, Dr. Chen explained. You've been trained to equate causing them discomfort with being a bad person. Breaking that programming feels wrong even when it's right. She had me write a letter to myself for weak moments. Dear Maya, I wrote, if you're reading this, you're doubting your decision. So let me remind you of facts. They laughed at you in front of 80 people after you spent $12,000 on their celebration. They've taken $68,000 over 6 years and never said thank you. They've ignored your achievements for decades while celebrating Daniel's mediocrity. You're not being cruel. You're being sane. You deserve better. Stay strong. I saved it on my phone, read it whenever the guilt threatened to overwhelm me. Lauren also helped me expand my support network. I joined an online community for adult children of dysfunctional families. Reading other stories was validating in ways I hadn't anticipated. I wasn't crazy. This was real. My pain was legitimate. Dozens of people with similar experiences, different details, same patterns. Parents who picked favorites, siblings who took without reciprocating, financial exploitation disguised as family duty. I reconnected with college friends I'd drifted from during my years of family focus. Sarah, who I'd been close with at university but lost touch with after graduation. Mike, who I'd worked with on the school paper. They remembered me differently than my family did. Intelligent, funny, accomplished, kind. They celebrated my courage in setting boundaries instead of questioning it. I always wondered why you seemed to shrink around your family, Sarah said during a long phone call. You were so confident at school, but at family events, you were almost apologetic for existing. Had I been? I thought about it, realized she was right. I'd spent so long being small in my family that I'd forgotten I could be bigger elsewhere. The week before I knew my family would escalate their efforts, I prepared emotionally, journaled every morning, exercised to burn off anxiety, maintained routines that gave me structure. Lauren checked in daily. How are you doing? Some moments I'm sure. Some moments I want to cave. That's normal. The guilt is decades old. It won't disappear overnight. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm the problem? Lauren pulled up my own documentation on her phone, showed it to me. Read this. Look at the facts. Are you wrong? I read through the timeline I'd created, the financial records, the pattern of dismissal and exploitation. Number 1, I wasn't wrong. For the first time in 34 years, I was finally right. The email detonated Sunday morning at 10 a.m. I sat in the cafe with Lauren, my phone face down on the table, still on Do Not Disturb, but I could see the screen lighting up, over and over, calls coming in. By noon, I had 47 missed calls. Lauren convinced me to look at the texts. You need to see their initial response. It'll help you prepare for what comes next. I turned off Do Not Disturb and watched the messages flood in. Mom. Maya, what is this email? Call me immediately. Mom: This is ridiculous. We need to talk about this. Mom: You're being incredibly hurtful and dramatic. Dad: This is disrespectful and unacceptable. I raised you better than this. Daniel: Question mark? What's going on? Why are you sending weird emails? I showed Lauren. She nodded. Exactly what I expected. Denial, anger, confusion, no accountability. More messages came in throughout the afternoon, from extended family this time. Aunt Susan: Your mother is hysterical. She says you sent a terrible letter accusing them of awful things. This doesn't sound like you. What's really going on? Uncle Bob: I don't know what's happening, but family needs to stick together. Whatever this is, it can be worked out. I responded with the statement I'd prepared. I've made a difficult decision to distance myself from my immediate family. I don't expect everyone to understand, but I ask that my privacy be respected. To Aunt Susan and my godmother Ellen, both of whom I'd always been closer with, I added, I'm willing to share documentation if you'd like to understand the full context. Both accepted. I forwarded them the comprehensive timeline, the financial records, the comparison of my achievements versus family response. Everything. Aunt Susan called 2 hours later, her voice shaking. Maya, I had no idea. Your mother always made it sound like you were happy to help, that it was mutual. She never mentioned, I didn't know about the money, or the party, or any of this. I know, I said. She's good at controlling the narrative. This is unconscionable. What they've done to you? I'm so sorry I didn't see it. Godmother Ellen texted, I'm reading this and I'm furious on your behalf. I always sensed something was off in how they talked about you versus Daniel, but I didn't realize the extent. You deserve so much better. 2 family members believed me. It shouldn't have mattered so much. I knew the truth, but it did. Validation after years of gaslighting was oxygen after suffocation. But the battle was just beginning. Tuesday evening, my apartment building's doorman called up. Miss Patel? Your mother and brother are here. Should I send them up? My heart rate spiked. No, thank you. Please let them know I'm not available. They're insisting it's an emergency. If it's a medical emergency, they should call 911. Otherwise, I'm not available. I watched on my building's app as my mother argued with the doorman, gesturing emphatically. Daniel stood beside her, looking uncomfortable. After 10 minutes, they left. My mother texted, I cannot believe you wouldn't even see your own mother. What has happened to you? The next day, my mother called my workplace. My receptionist, who I'd briefed with HR, followed protocol. I'm sorry, she's unavailable. May I take a message? Tell her it's her mother. It's an emergency. If it's a medical emergency, I can have security contact her. Otherwise, I'll relay that you called. This is unacceptable. I need to speak to my daughter. My mother called back 3 more times before giving up. Thursday brought the social media offensive. My mother posted on Facebook, Sometimes your children break your heart. We've always tried to be loving parents, but we can't control how our kids choose to see things. Praying for healing and reconciliation. The post gained traction. Sympathetic comments from people who didn't know the full story. So sorry you're going through this. Kids today don't understand sacrifice. You're wonderful parents. Don't blame yourselves. Daniel posted something more subtle. Family isn't always easy, but it's always worth fighting for. Missing my sister and hoping she finds her way back to us. Heart. I read these posts and felt the familiar pull to defend myself publicly, to correct the record, to stop them from painting me as the villain. Lauren stopped me. Don't engage on their turf. You'll look defensive. They want you to react. Don't give them that. Instead, I sent a measured email to the 12 extended family members who'd reached out with questions or concern. I appreciate everyone's concern. I want to clarify some misinformation that's circulating. Over the past 6 years, I've provided $68,000 in financial support to my immediate family. At my parents' anniversary party, which I organized and paid for entirely, $12,000, I was publicly mocked by my family in front of 80 guests. This is part of a long-standing pattern of being valued only for financial contributions while being emotionally dismissed. I'm not demanding money back. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm simply establishing boundaries for my own well-being. I've documented everything in detail, which I'm willing to share with anyone interested in the full context. This isn't about anger. It's about self-respect. I ask that my decision be respected and that you not feel pressured to choose sides. I love you all and hope to maintain individual relationships separate from this situation. I BCC'd the email and waited. The responses were mixed but revealing. 3 more relatives asked for the documentation. After reading it, all 3 expressed support. Uncle Tom called, his voice tight with emotion. Maya, I had no idea. Your mother told us you were doing well, that you wanted to help the family. We didn't know you were funding everything. And the party, that's unconscionable. 2 relatives tried to stay neutral. We love you both and hope you can work this out. 4 relatives didn't respond at all. 3 relatives sided with my parents, sending versions of, I don't know what's gotten into you, but family is family. You need to forgive and move on. But the critical mass had shifted. Enough people had seen the evidence. My parents' absolute control over the narrative was fracturing. At the weekly family brunch group chat, which I was still technically part of but had muted, my father posted, "Family meeting Sunday, everyone expected. We need to address the situation with Maya." Lauren screenshot it and sent it to me. They're trying to force a confrontation with an audience. I responded publicly in the group chat for the first time since the party. I will not be attending. I've communicated my boundaries clearly in private. Making this a public family spectacle doesn't change anything. I wish you all well, but my decision stands. Then I left the group chat. The silence on my end felt powerful. I wasn't defending, wasn't explaining, wasn't engaging. Just holding my boundary while the truth spoke for itself through documentation. Friday, a handwritten letter appeared at my apartment. Delivered by my mother, according to the doorman, though she didn't try to come up this time. I opened it. Dear Maya, I don't understand what's happened to you. We've always loved you and supported you. If we made mistakes, we're human. All parents are. This coldness and cruelty isn't the daughter I raised. You're breaking our hearts. Whatever we did to hurt you, we're sorry. But this cutting us off completely is too much. Please come home and let's work this out like a family should. Love, Mom. No acknowledgement of specific issues. No accountability for patterns. Just vague apologies and positioning themselves as victims of my inexplicable cruelty. Whatever we did implied they didn't know. But I'd sent a detailed accounting. They knew exactly what they'd done. They just didn't think it was wrong. I didn't respond to the letter, filed it with my other documentation, evidence of their refusal to engage with reality. The confrontation phase was ending. I'd held my ground. The truth was out. and I was still standing. Tired, grieving, but standing. The consequences for my family unfolded gradually over the following months. Without my financial subsidies, my parents faced their actual budget for the first time in years. Through conversations with Aunt Susan, who'd remained close to my mother while supporting me, I learned the details. The European river cruise they'd planned for spring got canceled. Not enough money saved. My father's car, which had been running rough, sat unfixed for 2 months until they could afford the repair. Small luxuries they'd taken for granted, regular dinners out, streaming subscriptions, home improvement projects, got scrutinized and often cut. Your mother complained to me about having to adjust their budget, Aunt Susan told me. She said times were tight. I asked if she'd considered that Maya had been subsidizing their lifestyle. She got very defensive. Daniel and Jennifer, expecting their first child, discovered their baby fund was smaller than anticipated. Through Lauren's network, family gossip traveled in complicated ways. I heard that Jennifer had mentioned to a mutual friend that they were struggling more than expected and wished Maya wasn't being so stubborn because we could really use her help right now. The entitlement was breathtaking. Even now, they framed my boundary as stubbornness, as if refusing to continue being exploited was a personality flaw. My mother tried one more financial angle, a voicemail in early February. Maya, it's your mother. I need a medical procedure that insurance won't fully cover. It's $4,000. I know we're not speaking, but surely you wouldn't let your mother go without medical care. Call me. I texted back. I hope you find a solution. I recommend speaking with the hospital about payment plans. Best wishes. Her response came quickly. I cannot believe my own daughter would abandon me when I need her most. What kind of person have you become? I forwarded the exchange to Dr. Chen. Notice how she frames your boundary as abandonment, Dr. Chen said, and medical emergency as leverage. This is manipulation, not communication. You handled it perfectly. I didn't respond to my mother's follow-up. The conversation was over. The power shift extended beyond finances. Extended family dynamics reconfigured around the new reality. Aunt Susan invited me to Easter dinner at her house. My parents weren't included. It was her daughter's family, Uncle Tom's family, and me. The first major holiday without my immediate family. I almost declined. The guilt was intense. But I went. The gathering was warm, relaxed. People asked how I was doing, actually listened to the answers. When I mentioned a project at work, the conversation stayed on it. No immediate shift to someone else. No dismissal. Cousin Rachel, Uncle Tom's daughter, close to my age, pulled me aside after dinner. I'm glad you came. I always felt something was off about how your parents treated you at family things, but I thought I was imagining it. You weren't imagining it. I know that now. A lot of us have been talking. We see it now. That conversation was significant. The invisible patterns were becoming visible to others. My family's version of reality was losing credibility. Uncle Bob, who had initially pushed for reconciliation, had his own revelation. He'd suggested to my mother that she might want to consider her role in the situation. She'd become defensive, then angry, started saying unkind things about me. Bob witnessed it and drew his own conclusions. He called me to apologize. I didn't understand before. I thought this was a misunderstanding that could be worked out. But after seeing how she responds to any suggestion of accountability, I get it now. The family social structure that had positioned my parents as central figures was decentralizing. People were realizing they could maintain relationships with me separately. My parents' authority to control narratives and enforce family unity was eroding. Meanwhile, my own life expanded into the space I'd reclaimed. Without the constant financial drain, I saved aggressively. Within 4 months, I had enough for a house down payment, something I'd delayed for years while funding family expenses. I put an offer on a small 2-bedroom house with a garden in a quiet neighborhood. It was modest but perfect, entirely mine, purchased without owing anyone anything. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room and cried. Not from sadness, from relief. From the overwhelming feeling of finally doing something for myself without diminishing myself for others. Professionally, I was sharper, more focused. Without family crisis management consuming my emotional energy, I took on a challenging campaign at work, led a team, exceeded projections. My boss noticed. Maya, you've always been solid, but lately you've been exceptional. There's a confidence in your work that's new. What changed? I made some personal life changes, I said carefully. It freed up a lot of mental space. Well, keep it up. I'm impressed. Personally, I worked through the layers of conditioning and therapy. Dr. Chen helped me understand how thoroughly I'd learned to equate my value with usefulness, how deeply I'd internalized the message that my needs were less important than everyone else's. It was painful work. Confronting the little girl who'd sat at the top of the stairs, wondering what she'd done wrong. Understanding that nothing was wrong with her. The system was flawed, not her. I built friendships intentionally, joined a book club, started hiking regularly with a group, developed relationships based on mutual interest rather than obligation. These connections were lighter, easier, reciprocal in ways my family relationships never were. 6 months after I'd walked out of that party, Daniel's baby was born. I saw the announcement on social media. My parents' first grandchild, a boy. They looked radiant in the photos, holding their grandson. I felt a moment of wistfulness, then let it pass. That chapter was closed. My mother sent one message. We have a grandson, in case you care. The passive aggression was transparent. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Jennifer called, Daniel's wife. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Maya, it's Jennifer. I wanted to apologize. I was silent, surprised. Daniel showed me the full documentation you sent to extended family. I didn't know about most of it. The money, the party humiliation, any of it. He'd always made it sound like you were just overly sensitive about family jokes. I see. And I realized something profound. I wasn't trying to earn anything anymore. I was simply existing, being valued for who I was rather than what I could do. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything I'd been chasing in the wrong places for 34 years. 1 year after I walked out of that anniversary party, I sat in my own home. The house I'd bought with money I would have spent on my family's wants. It was a Sunday morning, quiet and peaceful. I was drinking coffee in my garden, watching birds at the feeder I'd installed last month. The journey here hadn't been linear. There had been hard days. Holidays carried complicated feelings. My birthday felt strange without even perfunctory messages. Moments when muscle memory reached for the phone to call my mother before remembering. Grief came in waves, not for the family I'd lost, but for the family I'd never had. I mourned the parents who could have celebrated me instead of using me. the brother who could have seen me as a person instead of a resource, the childhood I'd spent trying to be invisible enough to be safe and visible enough to matter. Therapy had been essential. Dr. Chen helped me understand something crucial. I wasn't grieving a real loss. I was grieving an illusion. You're mourning the family you deserved and wanted, not the family you actually had, she'd explained. That's harder in some ways because you can't point to a specific moment they were taken from you. You're realizing they were never really there. That reframing helped. I wasn't crazy for grieving people who were still alive. I was processing the death of hope for something that never existed. I'd learned vocabulary that helped me make sense of my experience. Instrumental relationships, being valued for function, not personhood. Conditional regard, love based on compliance rather than inherent worth. Financial exploitation, using someone's resources without reciprocity. Golden child syndrome, Daniel's protected status. Scapegoat role, my position as the family problem solver who got blamed for having problems. Understanding these patterns helped me stop blaming myself. This wasn't about me being deficient. This was about a dysfunctional system that required someone to fill my role. I'd worked through complicated questions in therapy. Why did I accept that treatment for so long? Because I was conditioned from childhood that being easy was how you earned love. The quieter my needs, the more valuable I was. Except making yourself invisible to be valued is a paradox. They valued my utility, not me. How do I build healthy relationships after that template? Slowly, with people who show up consistently without needing crisis to motivate them. With people who celebrate my successes instead of minimizing them. With people who see reciprocity as baseline, not exceptional. What do I actually want from life when I'm not performing for approval? That answer was still emerging, but pieces were clear. Peace, authenticity, connections that don't cost my self-respect. The freedom to disappoint people without fearing abandonment. My relationship with my immediate family was now permanently distant. In 12 months, 0 direct contact. No calls, texts, or attempts at reconciliation. They'd moved on to their narrative, that I'd changed and abandoned them. I'd made peace with not being able to control that story. What mattered was that people who knew the truth supported me. Extended family dynamics had settled into a new normal. Some relatives chose my parents' side or stayed neutral. I accepted those losses. Others actively chose me, inviting me to gatherings, building direct relationships. The most surprising evolution was with Jennifer. After that initial phone call, she maintained occasional contact. Not close friendship, but respectful distance. She'd send photos of the baby, my nephew, with messages like, "Thought you might want to see him. No pressure to respond." I appreciated the gesture. I didn't engage with Daniel or seek a relationship with the baby, but knowing Jennifer saw the truth mattered. Professionally, I'd thrived in the space created by family distance. I received another promotion, Director of Marketing. My boss cited my leadership, confidence, and strategic thinking. "You're a different person than you were a year ago," she said. "More present, more decisive, more yourself." I'd been more myself by removing the people who required me to be less. Financially, I'd secured my future in ways impossible while subsidizing my family. Maxed out retirement contributions, built a 6-month emergency fund, invested in a diversified portfolio, renovated my house, took a trip to Japan I'd dreamed about for years, bought quality furniture, not luxurious spending, intentional investing in my own life and comfort. I'd started dating cautiously. Therapy helped me recognize red flags I'd have missed before. Partners who praised my independence while exploiting it, who positioned themselves as needing rescue, who had underdeveloped reciprocity skills. I dated several people, none serious yet, but learning what healthy partnership looked like. I'd built friendships with intention. My book club became genuine community, women who celebrated each other's wins and showed up for struggles. My hiking group included people who shared my love of nature without needing me to organize everything. These relationships were lighter because they were based on mutual enjoyment rather than duty and dysfunction. The question of forgiveness arose in therapy around month 8. I wasn't angry anymore, but I didn't know if I forgave them, and I felt guilty about that. Dr. Chen reframed it completely. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. You can acknowledge they did their best within their limitations, that Daniel was shaped by the same dysfunctional system, and still choose to protect yourself from them. You can wish them well from a distance. That's not holding a grudge. That's having boundaries. Permission to move forward without forced forgiveness was pivotal. I wrote an unsent letter, therapeutic exercise, to my family. I acknowledged good memories from early childhood before the patterns fully calcified. Released any expectation they'd change or understand. Stated clearly, I'm choosing myself, and I don't need your validation to do it. I burned the letter in my fireplace, Lauren present as supportive witness. How do you feel? She asked. Lighter, I said, and I meant it. Last week, Lauren's friend Sarah reached out. She was struggling with similar family dynamics and wanted advice. We met for coffee. Sarah asked the questions I'd once asked. How did you know it was time to leave? What if you're wrong? What if you regret it? I shared what I'd learned. I knew it was time when staying cost more than leaving. When I looked at my life and realized I'd spent $68,000 and decades of emotional energy trying to purchase something, love, respect, recognition, that should have been freely given. I was trying to earn what I already deserved just by existing. Was I wrong? Sarah asked. I spent months asking that. Then I looked at the facts. They laughed at me in front of 80 people after I paid for their celebration. They took my money for years while dismissing my humanity. They made my brother's minor feelings more important than my major achievements consistently. The facts told me I wasn't wrong. I was finally seeing clearly. And regret? Not because I'd earned it through sacrifice or usefulness, but because I was surrounded by people who valued me for who I was. The little girl who learned to be quiet and useful to be loved would be amazed to see this. A woman who finally understood she was enough exactly as she was. After everyone left, I cleaned up my kitchen, tired but content. I caught my reflection in the window, just myself, no performance, no armor, and I smiled. Not because everything was perfect. My family was still estranged. Some relatives still thought I was wrong. Holidays carried complicated feelings. But for the first time in my life, I was living authentically, not performing for approval, not shrinking to fit someone else's comfort, not giving pieces of myself away until nothing remained. I was whole. I was free. I was enough. And I finally believed it. If this story resonates with you, I want you to know something important. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to stop performing for people who see you as a punchline and a paycheck. It took me 34 years and $68,000 to learn that lesson. But I know it now, and I'll never forget it again. You are worthy of love that doesn't require proof. You are allowed to walk away from people who make you feel small. You are permitted to choose yourself, even when everyone else chose someone else. Your value isn't in what you provide. It's in who you are. And who you are is enough, exactly as you are.